Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Hashem Yahushua. Double honor to the apostles and elders of GreatMillStone, man. It's the brother one from the GMS MainCamp.
Brother Napash from the GMS London camp.
Yeah, just gonna do a little video, man. Just gonna go into basically like population control and it's really just going into a couple of statistics, man, which is showing that basically Esau is he's basically trying to apply eugenics to Jake, because I was watching a documentary a couple days back. It was like it was basically about like how when they say, in Japan, South Korea, they're saying they have a problem with basically like population, because people aren't having sex. The men ain't getting with the women. People ain't having as many kids. So it's it's a big problem. And it's funny just looking into some of the statistics, find out that like the shit they're putting it as a big problem over there, like in Japan. But then when you go look at the West, it's the same kind of thing, man. The same kind of things happen. Because in the West, if you look at I'll get to this. I'll edit the video and put them up on the screen because I'm looking at them here. But it's like if you go to let's start if you go to Japan, the birth rate says like 2015 it said 1.46 births per woman, and you go back to like the 60s. Back then it was like two, and then like up until the 70s, probably even up until like the 80s. Then it starts dipping down towards like 1.46, and then it's funny you so that's meant to be having a birth rate at like 1.46 is a dire problem. You go to like South Korea as well, like you go back to the 60s, the 70s, it was like 6 in the 60s. By the 70s it's dipping down to like around 4.5, 5. Then like by the 80s, early 90s it starts dipping down below 2. So hey, that's crazy, man. Dire problem. But then you look at like the US birth rates. Back in the 60s it was like 2.5 to 3. And then like over time it dips down. Same for the UK. In the UK, back in the 60s it was like 2.69, goes up to I think the highest was just under 3. Then it dips down like after the 70s, a heavy dip. Then it's like 1.74, and it stays kind of flat, like around 1.8 until like now. So that same problem they're claiming to have is the same thing that's been happening over here. And then you look into it. It's not hard to understand why, because in this like throughout the 60s and 70s, that's when they had the women's lib movement, man, and Planned Parenthood. Those are two big factors which contribute towards like basically population control, man. Because that's what Esau's doing it for, man. You look into it. That Planned Parenthood ain't just because because they just want women should be able to choose when they have a kid. They don't want undesirables having youths, man, and that's easy to prove as well, man. But you got something
yeah, I've got a preset up, man.
Go on.
Yeah, this is 2 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 11. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices.
Hey man, that's it. We're not ignorant of Satan's devices. Because hey man, Esau, if you watch Goodbye Uncle Tom, you can see from back then, man, Esau's doing studies, basically trying to prove that the Jake is inferior, and then they use selective breeding back then, man, because they'll have like the Mandingos and certain people with the desirable genes, either because they were great slaves, they bow to Esau's will, or because they had superior physical prowess. Those are the ones that they'll let him smash the women, man, and get the pussies, and then they'll be the ones that have youths, and they'll be selling the youths. So so-called eugenic selective breeding, Esau's was doing that back in slavery, and now he's just modernized it, so people don't really understand what's going on. But hey, that's what Esau's doing, man. We know these things, because like you look at like with the US, you look at like the abortion rate, which is like it was up over 1 million up until like 97, but then they stopped reporting like the full amount of abortions that were happening, so it's dipped down under it. But then you can just assume there's about 1 million or so abortions happening in a year. You go into the statistics of that, then it says like for example, what for 2013 they say it's like 6,600 abortions, but there's more because they're not reporting all of them. It says the ratios wise, it says the first bracket is Edomites, or so-called white people, which it says 50% of the abortions were so-called white people. But then the next bracket is 40% for so-called black women, man. So these black women are catching up to the Edomite woman in basically in them abortions, man. That's because the places that they place them abortion clinics and the way they market it and the way they basically sell the lifestyle is to get these black women out there being whores, getting smashed by every Tom, Dick and Harry, and then going to the clinic and get that baby murdered in their womb, man. Because, hey man, you look at they're saying it's like 50% for the Edomites and then 40% for the Jake women, and then you look at the ratios that Esau says like the population of the US is meant to be 72% Edomites and then like 12.6% Jakes. So that's like 4 times as many Edomite women out there than Jake women. But then 50% of the abortions are Edomite women and 40% these black women. That means these black women are going en masse in droves to murder them youths, man. And that's the eugenics. You know, get Exodus, because the Exodus is good. Because that's the thing is this has been done before, man. Back in Egypt, Pharaoh did the same thing. You saw the Jakes. Them Jakes were coming out regularly, man. Jake is a fertile race, man. They're a fertile as fuck race. They multiply. Hey, man, there's the sand of the sea, man. Okay. So Jake multiplies. Esau don't like that, man, and he's got his programs in place to cut that back, man. And that's what the so-called Western way of life is, man. It's the way of death. But go on, get
Yeah, this is Exodus chapter 1 verse 7. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. If I just jump down quickly to verse 9. And he said, verse 10. Come on, actually I'll read the whole thing. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt which knew not Joseph, and he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us.
So that's eugenics, man. Because I'll get the definition of eugenics, man. You go to like the Merriam-Webster, it says a science that deals with the improvement as of by control of human mating of hereditary qualities of a race or breed. And then you go down and it says like a science that tries to improve the human race by controlling which people become parents. So these guys are basically like what Pharaoh was doing back then. It was like, yo, I don't want them coming against me. I want, we gotta control them guys. How many of them youths be coming out? Because they're so mighty. If they came against Egypt, they'll tear it down. So it's the same thing Esau's done now. It's basically control. It's saying like, look, I don't want. They basically want to eliminate all of Jake, but they're like now. This is part of the plan, man.
Go for precept.
Go on.
This is Psalms 83 and 3. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come and let us cut them off from being a nation.
That's it, man. They're trying to cut us off because Esau's still mad about that blessing that he sold, and they're trying to get that back. That's why they want to annihilate us and then slot themselves into the prophecies so they can try and fulfill it themselves and become the chosen people. But hey, it's not going to work out. But that's showing this. Hey, it's in the scriptures, man. Esau, we got Esau. The Bible's got Esau's number, man. So these guys are trying to like, anyone that's got any complaints about the Bible or don't believe in the scriptures, you are an asshole and a dunce, and you're going to be destroyed. Go on, finish off Exodus.
Okay. There's a bit more left in that. So. Yeah. That when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Mm-hmm. Therefore did they set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. Mm-hmm. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with vigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with the rigor. Yeah, that's it pretty much.
No, there's the next verse, that's the one I'm looking for. 15, yeah.
And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was Shipra and the name of the other Puah, and he said, when you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him, but if it be a daughter, then she shall live.
So that's abortion right there. That's abortion in the Bible. So Esau, that's how you know America's Egypt, man. Because the same thing that went down in Egypt, that's what's going down. They had us in hard bondage, and now they're population control, man. So they're just doing that on a mass scale by putting them Planned Parenthoods and making the black women run up in there. Then back then, the black woman didn't want to. If you go into it, it says the black woman didn't want to murder all them youths, but now they're running to do it. That shows how gone these black women are, man. That's why the 99.97% of them need to get wiped out, man. Need to get wigged by some cops or getting melted by some missiles, man. Go on. Yeah.
It was keep reading that, yeah?
Yeah, it's a verse 17.
Okay. And he said, when you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then you shall kill him, but if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared God, and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive.
That's it, man. So back then, the black woman had some integrity, man. That Hebrew woman, she had some integrity. But nowadays, that's gone out the window, man. Those women they're the same ones that will be performing the act within them Planned Parenthood centers, man. So that shows, hey, man, Esau's got a lot to pay for, man. And these black women, man. Man are trying to talk like these black women have done no wrong. They are mass murderers, man. There's hundreds of thousands, 2 million of abortions happening a year, and almost half of them are these black ass women, man. So that means that is a lot of blood, man, and that's why it says in Ezekiel 9, slay out the old and young, both old maids and old women and maids, man, and young girls getting their heads bashed in, man. Because a lot of these young, so-called young women out here, these Jake